I've been teaching this class for a lot of years now, and one thing that I usually get would be at least one student, sometimes it's numerous students, that come to me before the semester really hits its stride. And they say something to the effect of, I'm no good in history, and I've traditionally struggled with history, and what can I do to make sure that I get through your class? And to that end, I believe that there are numerous ways to essentially work smarter, not necessarily harder. Let me start out by saying this. I approach this class as, the intended audience being a collection of people that would not take this class if it were an elective. And when I'm teaching in a lecture setting, I will generally ask on the first day of class, show of hands, how many of you would take this class if it were not required? And usually there's two or three out of a section of 20, 35 people. Okay. And so the bottom line is, I don't approach this class with the assumption that all of you, or really even any of you, are going to go on and become history majors, let alone, historians. So the fact is, it is very much intended at a general audience. And the other thing that I really try to emphasize when it comes to maximizing your performance, there's a lot of ways that you can really work smarter and not for a whole lot more effort. The first of which involves completing your discussion forums. Just about every week, you're going to have at least one discussion forum. And if you complete it, most of the time, assuming for a second you're not just copying and pasting song lyrics or writing your name over and over and over again, assuming that you do the very minimum of what I'm asking you to do, and it's very obvious to me that you read what I ask you to read, generally speaking, I will give full credit. Now, if you've looked at the syllabus, you can see that participation is a very sizable part of the grading scale for this class. And if you're diligent with respect to completing those discussion forums, that's going to do a lot with respect to your overall grade in this class. The other thing that I really want to emphasize would be the quizzes. As I've said in that welcome video, the quizzes are open book and they're open note and they're not timed. And the general purpose of the quizzes is for you to read a document, and they're really not long documents, but to read a document, think critically about it, right? And use that document. Use what you've learned from that document to answer some other question on a quiz, okay? So the quizzes are each worth 3 percentage points. There are essentially 6 of them. You can actually earn some extra credit, which is another way to get to where you want to go in this class. But the fact of the matter is, the quizzes are another really good way to work smarter and not harder. Now, let's just be honest. The papers are more difficult. They are more difficult, and they're going to require more mental horsepower. But my suggestions and my recommendations with respect to the papers is what you need to do is really pace yourself. I get this one all the time too. I'm a slow reader and it takes me forever to get in through a book, and so am I read very slow as well, so I empathize with you in that capacity. But the bottom line is, I don't have any requirement that has a week turnaround on any one of these books. And so if you pace yourself, you're doing a little bit or a chunk anyway each week, you're going to be perfectly fine as you go into the week that the papers due. Now, speaking of the papers and the week that they're due, there are resources that are available for you right now in Canvas. If you click the paper resource materials module of Canvas, right, you're going to find them. And what you will find in there is that I've uploaded not only the guidelines for the central question, but I've also uploaded some short videos. None of them are more than 15 minutes. And this will break down not only your reading, it'll take you to really important passages in the reading, but it will also relate it to key concepts, individuals, and developments in our course. And so if you go through those videos, the paper resource videos, it's really going to nudge you not really even nudge, it's going to push you pretty forcefully too, I would say, in the correct direction when it comes to where your brain needs to be as far as engaging these central questions. So that's another way to essentially maximize your efforts here. I'm not asking you to pull all-nighters, and I'm certainly not asking you to write a 35-page paper, okay? Now, lastly, the exams. And the exams are not a walk in the park. They're difficult, and you can make them more difficult if you don't do what I asked you to do. Now, to that end, it's really important to understand that you have to keep up with the lectures, okay? And so there are video lectures that are available in Canvas. They're there right now. They don't go away, and you don't have to wait for them. You can watch them. You can watch them again and again and again. Now, the videos that are on YouTube, what they will do is they will have a PowerPoint presentation. And my purpose in making them as such was simply because I wanted to get it as close to the in-class lecture version of how I approach this class as possible. Okay? You'll see my talking head at the bottom right corner of the screen, but every time I say something that's really important, a key term, what's going to pop up over here would be a thought bubble. And inside that thought bubble, it'll say something to the effect of Mesoamerica, and that it'll give you a working definition. Central America, predominantly Mexico, okay? And so it's really important to watch those things and keep up with those things. And I know every teacher tells you the same thing when it comes to this, right? But if you don't do this with the lectures, it's essentially really going to put you behind when it comes to the exams. Because those terms that I was telling you about with those thought bubbles, those are the building blocks of my midterm and final exam. Certainly they're the building blocks for the multiple choice questions, but if you have a good working understanding of those terms, then you can't help but to do well on the written portion of the exam as well. So, taken collectively, if you keep up with the due dates, especially the discussion forums as well as the quizzes, if you're pacing yourself with the papers, and you're using the resources that I'm offering up to you here in Canvas, and you're keeping up with the video lectures and you're keeping track of these terms, then you shouldn't have a hard time scoring what most of you would consider to be a pretty solid grade. And if you do a little bit more than the bare minimum that's asked of you, right, you really shouldn't have a problem, ending the class with an A. I'm hopeful that this class is a real shot in the arm to your GPA. I take no pride whatsoever giving somebody a grade that they're not entirely satisfied with, and I want you to be entirely satisfied with the grade that you walk away from this class with. The good news is it's entirely up to you when it comes to all of this, okay? You've got all the resources that you could possibly need to really maximize your efforts in this semester. I hope this video was helpful, and I hope that it maybe opened up a few different avenues to how you get the grade that you want out of this class.